Real quick, I'm still running a giveaway for a SNES Mini up until the end of March. There's a link in the description. Some of the best things in a Zelda game are its bosses. Twisted incarnations of evil wrought from nightmares, ancient guardians of forgotten ruins, or behemoth parasitic arachnids. But a class of Zelda enemy that often goes unappreciated are the mini-bosses, monsters surpassed in strength and ferocity only by the main bosses themselves. Mini-bosses are often fought halfway through a dungeon, guarding the key item, though many of them appear at different points throughout the games, outside of dungeons, in mini-dungeons, or even just around in the game's overworld. So today, let's look at Zelda's mini-bosses, in particular my 5 all-time favourites. In case you're new to the channel, I've previously gone over my top 5 favourite regular bosses, as well as my favourite final bosses from the series, so this completes our little boss triforce. Check those out if you haven't already, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see some more Zelda content from me in the future. Mini-bosses are some of my favourite things about the Zelda series, often more interesting than the main boss itself. They've been around since the very first Zelda game, although it was Link's Awakening that really established the theme of including them. So without further ado, let's delve into the dungeons of Hyrule and face some of the most intimidating and powerful non-boss enemies in the series. Number 5. Darknut. Throughout the Zelda games, Link has proved to be an incredible swordsman. Wielding legendary weapons such as the Big Goron's sword, the Four Sword, or the Blade of Evil's Bane itself, the Master Sword, there are very few who can stand toe-to-toe with the timeless hero when blades are drawn. But one enemy that proves time and time again they're more than a match for the hero in a sword fight are the Darknuts. Corrupted titanic knights clad in heavy plate, wielding colossal broadswords and great shields. Standing well over 7 feet tall in some games, Darknuts are walking tanks, their armour impenetrable except at the seams, their blades sharp and heavy. The Darknut is one of my personal all-time favourite recurring Zelda enemies. In fact, across all games I'd probably go as far to say as it is my favourite, although there's one contender for the throne I'll go over later on the list. They first appeared all the way back in the very first Zelda game, though they weren't a mini-boss then, just a common, albeit very tough, armoured enemy. The first appearance of a Darknut as a mini-boss was in The Wind Waker, where halfway through the Tower of the Gods, Link enters a small room and the door bolts shut behind him. Standing in the centre waits a Darknut, his sword hiding his face. That sweet, sweet mini-boss theme kicks in, and the Darknut switches stance and swings his blade, challenging Link to single combat. Darknuts themselves are probably the most dynamic and most fun enemy in the game. They start the battle clad in their plate armour and wielding their giant sword, though Link can cut this armour off and knock the sword from their hands, even pick it up and use it against them. When unarmed, the Darknuts resort to some sort of kung fu shenanigans, which actually makes them a lot harder to fight. The next 3D Zelda to feature a Darknut as a mini-boss is Twilight Princess, where they're just as awesome, if not even more so than their Wind Waker counterparts. Again, they're powerful giant armoured knights, but this time instead of using martial arts in later stages of the battle, they draw a rapier-like sword and continue to duel Link. A Darknut is fought as the mini-boss of the Temple of Time, although they're also encountered in the Cave of Ordeals and Hyrule Castle. Darknut mini-boss fights also appear in 2D Zeldas, the best of which feature in the Minish Cap, where they take on their forms from the Wind Waker. Link encounters multiple Darknut mini-bosses throughout the game, the most powerful of which is the Black Knight found in Hyrule Castle. They're easily the most powerful non-boss enemies in the game, vulnerable only on their weak spots on their backs. The Darknut is one of the greatest and most iconic Zelda enemies. It's a shame we haven't seen it since Twilight Princess back in 2006. They represent a true challenge to Link's martial skills, and I'd have loved to see them in a game with as great of a combat system as Breath of the Wild. Every time a Darknut mini-boss appears throughout the series, you know you're in for a real fight. Number 4. Egos du Ikana. Ikana Valley is my absolute favourite area in Majora's Mask, and one of my favourites in any game in the series. It's full of a sense of mystery and sadness, the ruins of an ancient, powerful kingdom inhabited by the lingering, long-dead remains of its subjects. Ikana Valley rots in the shadow of the Stone Tower, housing one of Majora's Mask's dungeons. The kingdom of Ikana during the events of Majora's Mask is a ruin, the decaying corpse of a once powerful nation which even now continues its war against the Garo, spies from an enemy nation, long after both sides are dead. And its castle serves as a mini-dungeon, a precursor to the Stone Tower Temple, crawling with undead, Skulltula, Floormasters and Garo. Link has to fight his way through the ruins of the seat of the Ikana royal family until he reaches the throne room where he faces the ancient king, Egos du Ikana. When Link enters the room, Egos will greet him, scorning him for bringing light into the eternal darkness of the kingdom. He darkens the room and sends 2 minions out to fight Link, one of which was supposedly the best swordsman in all of Ikana. Link can defeat them by shooting fire arrows at the curtains to let light in, and reflect this light onto them with the mirror shield. When both lackeys are defeated, Egos himself will stand up from his throne, prepared to deal with Link personally. The fight itself against Egos is really unique. He'll breathe ice, or blue fire, or just bad breath on Link, and he can detach his head and have it fly around the room independent of his body, latching onto Link like a redead, as well as just fight Link conventionally with his sword. He's basically just a more powerful version of one of his servants. You can defeat him again using the light. After his defeat and a little exchange between the spirits of the king and his servants, he'll explain the fate of his kingdom, that the curse that plagues them is due to the Stone Tower Temple being opened, and winds of darkness tearing their kingdom apart. He'll teach Link the Elegy of Emptiness, which he needs to take on the dungeon before fading away, his last words being, "On my kingdom, shine the light of justice." Egos du Ikana is the ancient king of a lost kingdom, cursed by the Skull Kid's actions in opening the Stone Tower. He's one of a few Zelda enemies that aren't truly evil, simply acting under the influence of a curse which Link breaks with the light. It's a shame the main boss of the Ikana region, Twin Mold, wasn't as inspired as Egos, because as Zelda mini-bosses go, you can't get much cooler than fighting the undead ruler of an ancient kingdom in his throne room. Number 3. Dark Link. The thick stone door fell shut behind Link, 5 cast iron bars sliding down from some unseen mechanism above to secure it. While he had just been in the depths of the Water Temple, an ancient labyrinth deep beneath the cold waters of Lake Hylia, he now stepped out into what appeared to be an open plain, clouded in heavy fog, the ground painted with a shallow pool of water. A lone dead tree sat on an island in the middle of the pool, the only feature of note between the 2 stone gatehouses which functioned as an entrance and exit. The still waters of this room captured a perfect reflection of everything above its surface, the 2 buildings, the lone tree, and of course the hero. As he walked across the water, so did the reflection below him, his mirror image. As Link walked past the dead tree, across the central island, and back again onto the water, towards the second gatehouse, something began to feel different. Link felt strange, incomplete almost, like someone was watching him. And then he realised the eerie truth. Where his reflection once walked beneath him in the water, now there was nothing. On the island behind him, in the centre of the calm pool, his shadow stood, separated from its parent. As still as the water, Link's reflection watched the hero of time, a perfect mirror image. Navi's comment captures the feeling of this battle perfectly. Instead of a detailed description, it simply reads, "Conquer yourself." A malignant reflection of the hero wrought from shadow, Dark Link is Link's true nemesis. He's likely the most memorable mini-boss in Ocarina of Time, perhaps of any Zelda game, a true challenge against yourself. We've fought Dark Link and the very similar Shadow Link in a load of games across the series, but none are as memorable as the fights during the Water Temple. At the beginning of the battle, Dark Link fights by mirroring your movements. If you stay still, so will he. He mirrors even the amount of hearts Link has at the time of fighting him. As if to taunt Link, he can jump onto the blade of the Master Sword to avoid your strikes, and if you manage to land a blow, he'll fall through the surface of the water before reappearing. At the start, Dark Link is a translucent, mirage-like clone of Link, though as the battle progresses he becomes darker and more opaque, more aggressive, almost as if the magical process through which he is copying Link is learning from the battle, becoming more intelligent, more real. Part of what's so exciting about Dark Link is the mystery of the battle. We don't know anything about his origin. My personal theory is that he's a creation of Morpher, a demon with mastery over water who has enchanted the pool to create an evil spirit from a person's reflection. Whoever Dark Link truly is, it's one of the most iconic Zelda battles of all time. Again, a mini-boss that completely, no pun intended, overshadows the main boss of its dungeon, and no favourite mini-bosses list would be complete without it. Number 2. Iron Knuckle. Iron Knuckles are absolutely some of the toughest Zelda enemies in any game. They made their debut in Adventure of Link, armoured adversaries who used a sword and shield and even throwing knives. But for me personally, Ocarina of Time was what cemented them as one of my absolute favourite recurring Zelda enemies. During Ocarina of Time, Iron Knuckles are fought in the Spirit Temple and Ganon's Castle, Gerudo warriors clad in thick, Darknut-like armour. But instead of a Darknut's traditional sword, these guys go one step further, swinging at Link with a great battle axe that will cut through stone or green forest boy with no distinction. So while we fight a few Iron Knuckles throughout the game, we fight one Iron Knuckle during the Spirit Temple as a mini-boss that stands out as my absolute favourite. The Spirit Temple is unique amongst Ocarina of Time's dungeons in that it's completed in two halves, partially when you're a child and partially 7 years later when you're an adult. During the child section, Naboru, a lone Gerudo thief, is trying to sneak into the temple to spy on Ganondorf and his minions, whose brutality she opposes. However, before she can sneak in, she's captured by the witches Kotake and Koume and taken into the temple. 7 years later, towards the end of the Spirit Temple, Link finds the witches both hunched over an Iron Knuckle sat in a throne. When he enters the room, they mock him and command the Iron Knuckle, their loyal minion, to destroy him. The Iron Knuckle stands up, the mini-boss theme starts, but it realises it's forgotten to summon its axe. It snaps its fingers, a battle axe appears, and the fight ensues. This mini-boss fight plays out pretty similarly to a normal Iron Knuckle fight, which is to say, it's awesome. It deals an insane amount of damage and Link needs to pick his time to attack after the Iron Knuckle has swung its great axe. Like the Darknuts, Iron Knuckles are a real challenge, though Navi notes that there's something off about this one. And sure enough, when Link smashes the Iron Knuckle's armour to pieces, the Iron Knuckle's revealed to be none other than a brainwashed Naboru, clad in armour and forced to do the witch's bidding. It's revealed that Naboru had been brainwashed and used to serve Ganondorf for 7 years. The carpenters in Kakariko village mention that she led a gang of thieves, stealing from the weak and the innocent, brainwashing people herself at the Spirit Temple. And now, likely as a cruel joke aimed at both the Gerudo thief and Link himself, the witches dressed her up in a suit of armour and forced her to fight Link, hoping one would kill the other. Naboru's Iron Knuckle fight is an awesome twist on one of the best enemies in the game, adding another level of depth on an already incredible mini-boss fight. Iron Knuckles are some of the most fun and most intimidating enemies in the game, but the fact that one of them is just a brainwashed Naboru forced to fight you just makes it even better. Number 1. Here we have it, my absolute favourite Zelda mini-boss of all time, King Bulblin from Twilight Princess. As one-off secondary antagonists go, you don't really get much better than this. He's, as his name implies, the leader of the Bulblins during Twilight Princess, a hulking, brutish, orc-like warlord clad in crude armour. King Bulblin and his legions of soldiers follow strength. They follow Zant, and by extension the true power behind him, Ganondorf. At the beginning of the game, King Bulblin is responsible for kidnapping the Ordonian children who escape to Kakariko. And later, in the supposed safety of Kakariko Village, we get one of the best Zelda cutscenes of all time. The peace is disturbed by the harrowing, slow-motion charge of King Bulblin, clad in full armour, riding full speed towards the children. Colin sacrificially throws himself in front of the charging beast and is captured, seconds before the hero of Twilight arrives on Epona. Link gives chase, and through Hyrule Field he pursues the king in order to rescue Colin, who's tied to his steed. After catching up to and attacking King Bulblin, he'll ride towards the Bridge of Eldin, preparing to take Link on one-on-one. The Hylian rides Epona, and the brutish warlord rides Lord Bulbo, a colossal armoured boar. With hundreds of feet of dark chasm below them, the two joust on the thin stone bridge. Link must slash at the king while avoiding the crazed charges of his steed, eventually throwing him from the boar into the darkness below. However, this isn't the only time we see King Bulblin. There's actually a second jousting fight against him on Hyrule's second Great Bridge, the Great Bridge of Hylia, where he's come prepared and kitted himself out with shields. This fight is just as climactic as the first. It comes after escorting Telma and Ilia across Hyrule, only to find the bridge blocked by the monstrous king. Telma encourages you, this is your time, their lives depend on you besting this foe. To beat him this time, Link needs to shoot him in the gaps in his defences, again resulting in him falling off the bridge, apparently to his demise. Both of these encounters with the monstrous King Bulblin are amazing, because they truly show that you, Link, are the hero. This terrifying beast captures Colin, a young boy from your hometown, and the men nearby are too cowardly to face him. Only Link has the courage to protect the defenceless, to save the weak, and only Link puts up a fight to the brutality of King Bulblin. But even after being thrown twice from two great bridges, losing both his horns, the beast survives. A third fight takes place at the Bulblin camp near the Arbiter's grounds, where we fight King Bulblin on foot, who wields a gigantic battle axe which, due to his sheer size, is incredibly powerful but incredibly unwieldy. The giant walks out from the darkness, smashing aside a Bulbo and then Link, and then the fight begins. After Link bests him in combat, he'll try and kill the hero by setting the tent on fire, but you can escape by riding the injured Bulbo. And finally, the fourth encounter with King Bulblin takes place at Hyrule Castle, at the climax of the game. He'll jump down from a bridge far above, revealing that he's not the mindless brute he's appeared to be, grunting, "I came to play," at Link, before beginning to attack with his trademark Great Axe. This fight is similar to the third encounter. He's absurdly powerful but very slow. And after the fourth and final defeat at the hands of the hero, King Bulblin realises just how powerful you are, deciding to forsake Ganondorf. Enough. I follow the strongest side. That is all I have ever known. The revelation that King Bulblin not only can speak, but respects Link's strength enough that he considers him the top of the pecking order is such a great twist ending to the story of this minor antagonist. He rides off, and during the end credits we see him, along with other Bulblins, seemingly at peace, riding around Hyrule Field. It turns out that the Bulblins and their king weren't inherently evil, just a race of tribal warriors who followed whoever they deemed to be the strongest. And by the end of the game, that's you. Just like with the Darknuts, I love the King Bulblin battles because they show your progression, and your transformation from the farmer from Ordon Village into the hero of Time's successor, a warrior worthy of the Master Sword and the Triforce of Courage. At the beginning of the game, King Bulblin seems invincible, terrorising the people of Ordon and Kakariko. But by the end of the game, even this brutal warlord realises and respects how strong you've become, and admits defeat. In my opinion, King Bulblin is one of the greatest Zelda villains of all time, despite not even being one of the game's main bosses. He proves a real threat to the most innocent and the most defenseless, and forces Link to act his part as the hero. He's such a brilliant character, the likes of which we've never really seen since. I'd absolutely love to see another enemy play a similar role in a future Zelda game. King Bulblin is the greatest Zelda mini-boss of all time, no question. Thanks for watching this video. Do you agree with my picks? Who do you feel are the best Zelda mini-bosses? Leave your picks in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like or subscribe if you haven't for more Zelda content. The giveaway link's in the description and is running right up until the end of March, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.